Welcome everyone to this Force Friday. Today we have a special guest, a student of mine named Gragg. How you doing, Gragg?
Hey, how are you?
Good. So Gragg's been with me for a few years, and what we thought we would share with you guys today is what that's looked like, right? What's his process been as a mentee at drawingforce.com, and just going through the process. I think there's a lot to learn from this conversation and just get a sense of what it takes. I think what it takes to get from a place that we all begin at for the most part and to the place that he's gotten to today. So let's say hello to Swanley and Mattesi. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Hey guys.
Excited?
Yeah, doing good. Welcome, Greg. Great to have you.
Yeah, great beer.
So before we get started today, let's head back to Photoshop. Before we get started today, I have a couple of announcements. I just don't want to forget. If you're following my Instagram, you're probably already aware of this, but I am in New York at the moment, as you can see from my background in the video feed. And I am running a workshop next weekend, not this weekend, next weekend, 21st and 22nd here in New York. I'm going to be doing a 2-day workshop, and I think there's 1 or 2 seats left. So if you're interested, go to drawingforce.com and go to the workshop page, and there you will find a way of enrolling. Okay, like I said, I think there's 1 or 2 spots left. I know it's not totally filled. I don't know off the top of my head if it's 1 or 2, but it's almost all gone, right? So it would be awesome to teach you. This is in person only. You have to be in New York to take it, but it's kind of rare. I've actually never taught in New York, believe it or not, like privately setting up my own hosting. I've taught in New York as an instructor at schools for years, but never in this kind of situation. So I'm super excited to be running this workshop. So if you're anywhere in like the tri-state area, or you want to fly in, there are people coming from all over the East Coast for this workshop. We got people coming in from Florida and Canada. So come on over, right? I'd love to have you and get to meet with you and work with you face to face. And just to repeat what we went over last week, right? The Force book is out, right? Our 6th Force book, Force Fabric, came out this past Wednesday. So if you go to Routledge, here, let me type this in for you guys. Let's get this over here. Routledge.com, like so, lowercase o. If you go to routledge.com, that is the mother company of my publisher. If you type in my name or you type in Force Fabric, you will find the book there. Okay, so that's it. We'll be doing more videos on Force Fabric in the future, obviously on this channel. But yeah, I'm pretty excited, like I said, about this book. It's number 6. And once again, we were, I think, quite inventive with how we are teaching it, right? And I think it's a really great, clear step-by-step process. If you're interested, watch last week's Force Friday, because over that hour, Mattesi and I went over the book to give you guys an introduction to it. And you can always email me at mike@drawingforce.com if you have any questions, okay? So let's get to it. Let's see, I wanted to start here. So you saw in the thumbnail a look of where Gragg's work is currently over the last couple of months. Here's another example, right? So this is where things are going, right? You kind of saw this with Joachim a few months back, for those of you that have been, following us that long and also have been, watching these videos. The idea of actually starting to try to bring, some render into the figures. We even talked about that, Swanley, Mattesi and I, a couple of weeks ago. And in full transparency, Gragg was really one of the main reasons for us holding that video session, that topic, because he and I have been having conversations about this, and he's been really pushing hard himself into this space and trying to figure out, like, where am I going? What's my end? What does my work look like, right? Would you say that's fair, Gragg?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Right. So let's go to where Gragg started. So remember this image.
Yeah.
Right. And this is where we were when I met you. Right.
Yeah. Which I see no difference.
Exactly. Me neither. We haven't come very far at all. I think we need to work way harder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Way hard. You're only trying Force here. And as Yoda says, you can't try. You have to do it or don't do it. So you're only trying here. That's why.
Do or do not. And I was doing not. basically.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's go back into your past a little bit, right? When I met you, I think what's interesting with you is you have quite a diverse background, and I think you got really skilled in many different subjects. At the start of your career, right? So fill us in a little bit about yourself before we start going through all this artwork.
Yeah. So, at a young age, it's, I think everyone watching and everybody who's here understands like what it's like to be obsessive about things. And I think, from a young age, I was obsessive about music. So by the time I was 16, both my parents are professional entertainers and comedians. And it was very easy for me to, fall into music. And so by the time I was 16, I was actually, directing orchestras and playing session guitar for, a living, basically. And then, things happen in the practical world of things where you find out, what bands are about and that sort of thing. And then it ended up, by the time I was 20, I was actually a lead programmer at the Swiss bank. So, things kind of took a change there. But when you do music, it makes, there's a progression from thing to thing that I've done. When I got into the Swiss bank, it's, music's very ordered and mathematical. There's a lot of logic to it. And so when you get into programming, there's a logic of why I'd get into programming and that sort of thing. And basically, the secret to all of it really is just being super determined is like a huge component of it, and a lot of work. So when I was a composer, there was a lot of work into understanding how to manipulate each instrument and put them together as an ensemble and make pieces and songwriting and all that sort of thing. And then with programming, there's a lot of work and lots of computer books read and that sort of thing. And it was all stuff that I could do from the self. Like I could self-teach myself these things. And when I got into design, that was after programming. So basically I was designing computer screens for everything. I was designing interfaces essentially. And then that led me just to doing design essentially. So then I ended up in advertising. So I've done like now thousands of ads basically for the last 20 years. So, for like Netflix and Universal and CNN and AMC. So a lot of digital advertising, a lot of motion graphics, a lot of 3D stuff is what I got into. So each one of those disciplines, it took a lot of like thinking through each one of them and really a lot of hard work. And, it was easy to do if you were determined. But then it came to drawing, where all of a sudden I thought, oh, I can apply like the same, system to drawing essentially. And I got into drawing and immediately found out that it wasn't like anything else that I had done, that I really needed assistance, as you can see from like the pictures that we showed. So, was shopping for a while and I tried like the Atelier. And I tried, as in, they have online courses and there's other places where you can get training for the Atelier. And then I stumbled upon you and Swen Lee and Diego actually from the past and found a video that really spoke to me about how you could go from one end to the other with force and force shape and how it was less intimidating, basically.
That was a video we did for Proco, I think, on like character design or something, right?
I think so. I think that was the one. Yeah. And I had been scouting your videos before, but for whatever reason, that particular one like really tipped me in to be like, you know what? I think this is for me. And I think I need to admit after trying these other things on my own, I'm just hitting a wall. I don't know where to go with it, that sort of thing. And that's when I started trying your course and it was going really well. Like I was like, wow, I'm learning a lot of stuff. But I wasn't learning as fast as I wanted to, especially at the age that I am. I was like, you know what, I really need to accelerate this and I need to learn this a lot faster. So that's when I reached out to you for a mentorship.
Yeah, cool. So what, I just keep looking at this. It's amazing that we've gotten from here to here, right?
Yeah.
But to go back to what you were saying, there's a couple of things that really strike me in there. First of all, you'd learned all these other things, and you kind of figure out, I know how to learn, right? I know how to learn. I think that's already a big deal, because there's many students, of course, that come to drawingforce.com, and they don't necessarily have a system, right? They're typically younger than you and I too, so they don't know yet. Like, how do I learn? I just got out of high school or whatever, right? Like,
Right.
So they don't really get it yet. But you even knew that, and even knowing that, and coming over to drawing in general, seemed to be a little more challenging, right?
Yeah, it was weird because like I do 3D modeling and I do sculpting, and I thought I did, I was happy with what I did, in those fields. And so I figured, oh, drawing, yeah, piece of cake. Let me pick this up and, I'll be done in like a few weeks. Right. And wow, it was such a difference. There's a lot going on cerebral in a cerebral level with drawing, and an emotional level that you have to find too, that link together. And you need guidance, I find, for myself anyway. And I my significant other, Kelly, also is a mentee of yours, and she shares the same opinion that we were both, decent. Like, if you're in high school drawing like this, somebody looked over and said, wow, that's cool. And then if you get into the professional world, people are like, okay, you need to step up your game. There's people that do this for real, that kind of thing.
Right. Right.
And that's where I wanted to go. I wanted to make sure I was expressing myself in a way that was at par with at least the other things that I do, that I'm proud of, that I do. And it really, it took a mentorship and a lot of, energy, a lot of time, a lot of working through what people have to work through in drawing, to get there. But having the guidance there is, I gotta say, was a fantastic move. And I'm glad that I did it. I probably shaved, 10 years off of getting to where I wanted to be, and I don't exaggerate that. I think
I have a question, Greg, based on what you're saying. How did you deal with the patience aspect? Because, to give an example, some students come in and they think that they're going to become a master and have a professional portfolio in like 36 sessions.
Yeah.
But you have been with Mike for a couple of years, right? So how did you deal with having the patience to go through the process?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think from all the things that I've learned how to do, what you have to be honestly really good at is looking at failure of what you're trying to do as a kind of gift. It's another kind of knowledge. And you learn in programming, when you try to make a program work and it fails, that's actually how you learn to make the program succeed. When you write a piece of music, the melody is wrong until it's right. And there's a natural give and take to understanding that the frustration that you feel is actually a force to harness and not to run away from. And if you can get behind frustration as a gift, as an understanding that you have good taste, you're frustrated because you have good taste and it's not right yet. There's another comparison I like to make too, is when you sit down to play like a race car game. I don't know how many people play race car games like on an Xbox or a PlayStation, right? When you first, or Mario Kart or any of those, right? When you first sit down to do the track, you're usually in last place. And games are built in a way to make it so that you want to keep on playing until you succeed. So if you can game out something that you're doing and put it into tiny bits to figure out how to make little successes feel like big successes, then you can kind of put those pieces of the trail in front of you and say, hey, I'm so glad I finally drew a torso correctly. Oh, wow, my arms, they look terrible, but let's celebrate the fact that I can do the upper torso correctly. Hey, I finally put the center line in. I'm going to high five myself because I was doing terrible on center lines like 2 weeks ago. So if you can break apart what you're trying to do into little micro successes and pat yourself on the back for it, then that's you gamifying something and getting you through any subject that you try to learn is going to be frustrating. And the only thing that you have to do is flip the switch in your head that turns it into a game. And as soon as you do that, you can pretty much learn anything.
You bring up an interesting point. For me, because I'm at least I was a pretty big gamer. I would. My goal was always to figure out like what was going on. It's like almost getting into the mind of the game designer. I like playing until I feel like I'm like, okay, now I really get how this works. It's like always trying to find the path of least resistance through all of the resistance to get to.
Right.
And I used to do that all the time. And I think there's just like a determination, to get to that end, to getting to what it's supposed to be, and it just I'm kind of taking a very big, I think, psychological thing here and kind of minimizing it. But the goal here is determination. Like for any of you that are artists out there, I think I'd be lying if any of us would be lying if we said it's all roses all the time. It's not. Like there's going to be times where you're really frustrated or upset or annoyed or angry or whatever, right? It's like, oh, why am I not getting this, or get depressed over it? Like we've all been there. You just have to work through it, and your goal, I think, has to be big enough for you to want to push through all that other stuff, and you have to have some level of determination in you to drive through it. I think let's keep talking because it's a great conversation, but we have a lot of artwork to look at. So let's just have this conversation going on while we're looking at the art.
Sure.
So this was you still at the very beginning. That was with the other piece, and this is like this first. This is like the first exercise basically all students go through. So here's Gragg's version of it, right? It's doing the skating and the blind force drawing all the way to traditional. And you I think we talked about this earlier. You went from let's switch these just to go from left to right. You went from here to here, and how long was this?
There's only 4 weeks, which is what made me really happy.
Yeah.
You can already see the pangs of getting into force within like 4 weeks. And that can mean something different for everybody. Like some people might not find that for 6 months. Some people might not find that for a year. Some people might do it the first day that they walk in. And the trick is being okay with where you're at. I'm okay, you're okay kind of person. And, and saying, this is me now. I believe in myself to the point where if I just put my head down and I kind of discount almost the drawings that I'm seeing come out of me, but I just believe in the hard work, just like you would if you're playing a video game level over and over again. You're playing because you really think you're going to be number one at Mario Kart soon.
Right.
You're not playing it because you think I'm always going to be dead last. Right.
Right.
But that's how every course is going to start off when you're playing a race car game. And so, the feeling that I'm coming into this, that, within 4 weeks, because this is now, 9 months later, which, that means that there is a lot of like learning, like this is one I chose to bring up because the ones up to there, they kind of just look the same, like we could bring out more drawings, but they didn't, it takes working through to a eureka point and having a eureka and saying, that's the eureka I'm looking for, and, it takes watching you draw, bring it in, find out what you're doing wrong, look at someone else's work, say, well, how are they doing this? Having you walk me through how someone's doing this. And then, you can tell the line weights. I still don't understand line weights yet. So that's still, and the other thing is too, is we're talking about how, drawing is very physical. And if you went right now to go start playing basketball or football or whatever it is that you're going to go play, you might not be good for a year because your body is not yet right for the sport. And that's another thing that you kind of have to realize is, just getting your arms strong enough to do the curves that you want to do, to draw with your whole arm and not just your wrist, and to really find, how you can work to make those curves. That finding that physical side of drawing and realizing how physical it is, I think is a big part of. I think it's a big part.
I don't have a lot of people tie that 5-pound weight to their wrist while they're drawing. I only did that with you, Greg.
Yeah, well, it worked. It really worked. And when you went up to the 40-pound, that's when I was like, wait a minute. Do you really do that with everyone? Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah. After the several wrist sprains. Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, then
so this was a big jump. I just want everyone to recognize this, right? As Greg just said, he got here very quickly, right? 4 weeks, like a month out. You did really well, right? So it's like you just came out, we're going for a run and you came out of this sprint, right? Like a really fast pace. And this was months later. So a lot happens in between here. And this isn't slow, by the way, just to throw in a judgment on this. This isn't a slow progression. It's just, there's a lot of work that goes on between this drawing that you have here on the left and this one. Like, just to state the obvious, there's a lot of perspective and construction that has to happen before we get over here and we get to these cross contours and turning edges and so on in this figure, right? So I think you're still on a pretty good path, but having now taught for so long, this is where we hit the mud, right? It's like things start to slow down because it takes more time to learn the construction, and it takes more time to not learn it, I should say, but to draw it, to physically draw it takes more time. We get into the sculpting, which gives you the opportunity to draw more of the nuances of form of the body, right? How was this whole period for you?
Yeah, like these are the eureka drawings on top of, I will say I was doing, 50 to 60 drawings a week, basically. And, on an average of a half an hour to an hour of drawing, you're looking at like 20 to 30 to 40 hours a week of drawing. So anytime I could get it in between what I was working on and spend entire weekends doing it, because I like that kind of determinism, just like you never stop to go after a video game, to win it.
Right.
I wanted to win this video game, right? So this is the result of many drawings that weren't good until there was a eureka. Usually watching a Force Friday and watching Swenley or Matrinje or yourself do something, I go, oh my God, and I run off to the other room and I start doing, I'm like, oh God, this works. Like, finally, thank you, And so it's those moments, and you do experience them when you're, you can still see I'm not in shape yet. My line is still being worked on. I'm still being physical though, like not afraid to move my arm, even if it's not the best, right? Like it's okay, because I know in the back of my head during these, while I was doing them, is that I'm building my arm. The more I move my arm over and over and over these lines over and over, I'm improving my quality over time. And it's very true. As you keep on going, you can see unless you want to stop here and comment, but yeah, you can start seeing I'm starting to work a thinner line over the next one.
Yeah, you see this.
And the constructions and the observation. I mean, like, if there's anything, that's tough about drawing, is not only you trying to learn how to move your wrist, but you're also looking at something and saying, how do I represent this?
Right.
And,
right.
The invention part of it, and really deciding, like, am I going to be ultra realistic? Am I really trying to find every curve, or how do I be more abstract about what I'm looking at? So there's that level. And you can see the one on the right there, I finally got those up to like 2 minutes to like draw those super fast, and then worked on the details on the left.
Yeah, it's good.
And then this is around the same period where I was really having a lot of problems, like people bending back away from me or bending toward me, things in perspective, and how do I represent that? And this represents one where I finally kind of figured out how to think through shape and perspective to push people back into space.
How's this sculpting phase for you? Like, we can already see that you're getting some light and shadow, so we can see like that you're really going in that part, like in going at that range, like doing the light and shadow plus the sculpting. So how's this experience for you?
I don't know, like, so much consciously if I was going after like light and shadow, but just sort of the form itself on the body. And I think maybe it just worked out in terms of shadow on this one, or just accidental lighter lines, because I really wasn't thinking in terms of lighting and shadow until like in the past like couple months, basically. So this was really just me figuring out that I could do fewer sculpting lines and still say as much as when I was doing a lot of sculpting lines over it. And sculpting lines are like the little lines, those listening, that show that these things have volume and that they're pointed in a particular direction. And it takes some time to figure out that everything is really kind of just a cylinder or a box, and you have to sort of hint at it. At first, you're not hinting, you're being pretty square on the jaw about it. And then pretty soon you start looking at like your guys' drawings where you guys were really just hinting at it and saying, okay, how do I not just on the head show these are boxes, but how do I do little marks that make these indications that they're a box? And I think that's that period for me was a little tricky, you know.
Yeah.
And this is a period of observing a little bit better, just a little bit.
Yeah, so what I like here is something I want to call out is you got better and more accurate over time instead of the goal being let's get you accurate, which is how many schools of training towards drawing are. And this is why I do this with all of you. Instead of making the job of drawing to be to copy, I know that over time, your eye is going to get better, your hand's going to get better, you're going to get more accurate, but I want force to be driving that the whole time and just an understanding, right? So you had force and form going on. And now you're here, right? And you're getting pretty darn accurate, right? You're getting more acute visually. And yet we came from a place of force and form where you were not at the start, right?
Right.
So to me, it's this natural progression instead of going through the, I don't know if I'm sounding maybe too strong, but the torture, the torture of making drawing, just copy at the beginning, you know, let's just copy,
Right.
get all those angles and measure and so on, you know, which for me, I think if I was ever taught that, I was never, I got lucky. I think I was never taught in that way. I don't know if I even would have continued because it's so not me, you know, to just sit and sort of copy things, you know.
Right.
So you've gotten more efficient here, right? We can all see that the sculpting is starting to sort of pare down and you're recognizing better how to grab edges. Your line, you were talking about line before, you know, you're getting a little more sophisticated here about line use and lights and darks and soft touch compared to finalizing moments, right, in the body.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you're at a phase like this where you still look around at artists that are still doing so much better, but you have to give yourself a pat on the back when you feel like you've moved on to some next rung on the ladder, right? And it's like you can't give yourself a full super pat on the back because there's more work to do. But you have to recognize, hey, I'm starting to understand something here and recognize what it is. And those are the little successes that keep you going.
Mm-hmm.
And then this was a big phase for me. This was really when I was really starting to understand how to take the pose myself in my mind and how to think through a different process other than just looking at angle, trying to copy, but pulling my own arm back in my mind and then feeling that with the pencil. So that's where it starts getting emotional. You start merging with how, you start sympathizing and merging with how somebody feels and merging that with some better observation at the same time. You know, you can imagine drawing is like 5 different levels that are going up, and one increments a little bit, like your line weight, your observation goes up a little bit, your sense of sympathy with the model goes up, your sense of form and force and shape goes up a little bit. And you're incrementing little levels at a time, you know, like one over here, one over here, one over here. And that's why the drawings start looking a little bit better over time.
Yeah, you said like the idea of connecting emotionally, and I think through that, in a sense, you're also connecting physically. You know, like you said, it's about me moving my body and my mind. And I remember this period very clearly. To me, this was like the really big, like, oh, okay, this is all starting to come together. This guy's getting it. Like suddenly we're past just skills. It's like skills used towards bigger ideas here. And I think the bigger picture is starting to occur in these drawings as well during this time. You know, it's like how how like the shoulder tucked under his chin is working compared to his arm getting pulled back underneath his other arm. and to your credit, a lot of this also is just really excellent choice of reference at this point for what you needed. This guy in this next strip of poses, he's like always working his own body against itself, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, it is physical, right? And you really get to see how that's all happening. And I think it just clicked for you at that time. Like all these, this guy, right? This all started like tapping, I don't know, tapping in. You know, I could feel the bigness of like the whole idea starting to come together, you know?
Yeah, I agree with exactly what you're saying. Yeah. This was a good moment for me when I really started understanding. Yeah, just this whole series of this guy was a real understanding of line weight and sympathy, and really watching the body, like you said, work against itself. You know, and the next stuff we'd be starting to do would be the anatomy. And I think that's when you start really feeling the physicality of the body, more than just memorizing how shapes are in the body, but feeling how the body works. And you're putting that emotional component in your mind while you draw. And it's hard at the beginning to understand how this is going to work later. But as you start getting the basics down, this is what starts taking over, is how things are working together or working against each other.
Yeah, it's a really big jump. I mean, it's really the foundation of what force drawing is, that I think that really differentiates it, is we want you to understand the whole system. You know, it's like, it's interesting how this guy's shoulder is pushing out, the screen left shoulder, and look at the angle it's at compared to where it's flat, and that the other arm's pushing down on it, right, with the top of the hands down. Like there's a system, right? He's generated a system in here between the two arms, right? And how they're fighting against each other with force, right? Not only does the screen left arm have gravity to deal with, well, they both do, but this arm is also pushing down on top of that other hand. And then you look at the rib cage and recognize how it's getting sucked into this activity, right? It's getting pulled into that screen left shoulder, right? It's like, oh, there's a whole thing going on here. It's much bigger than all these little pieces, you know, and you're doing it with structure and trying to get anatomy and trying to get force and trying to use the line, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of different things starting to click, you know?
All the buckets are starting to come in. You know, there's a moment where you might get really good at one bucket and it starts falling off, and the other four buckets are where you're drawing from. And it's not because you're necessarily doing bad, but sometimes you're isolating the buckets you're not good at and leaving the one out that's a crutch for the other ones. And so you'll do this thing where, wait, I thought I was just drawing so awesome. Now what's going on? Why did I just go down from here? And you realize it's because you're excluding the thing that you're using as a crutch. And you're starting to do the other ones to see if you can get the drawing to stand alone without your crutch. So you'll see this a lot while you draw. You'll see yourself draw really well. And then for some reason, you're like, I was just drawing so well like 2 weeks ago. What's going on now? These don't look like they did. And then you just have to realize, oh, wait, I'm working out the thing I'm not good at. That's why they're going to go back to look like that for a second. But I'm about to get those up to a point where I start merging the buckets that I'm good at together. And then they're all going to come together and make a concert that's better than they ever were. So you just have to realize that while you draw. Just because you draw something great doesn't mean next week you're not going to draw something terrible. You have to really keep that in mind, that it's an ups and downs while it's natural. And in fact, if it doesn't happen that way, it probably means you're not researching the things that you're bad at. You're not attacking your weaknesses.
Yeah, I had a student this morning kind of compare it to driving a car, because at the beginning you might be really scared or even clumsy about it, and you start learning how the gas works and how the brake works, how steering and signaling and all these things. And at some point, all of that stuff, you know, kind of coalesces, right? And then it's like you're driving, you understand the signal compared to the turn and the timing of it, the timing of the gas to the brake, right? And the more you do those things, even in that understanding, you get better and better at them, you know? Like it's such a silly little thing, but like I'm aware when I know that I'm going to turn left and my hand's on the wheel, I hit the signal on my way down. That's one action for me. You know, I'm like, oh, I'm going to stick my finger out as I turn. I know it's going to clip the stock, you know, for the blinker on my way down. It's one thing. That's after, you know, 30 years of driving, 35 years of driving. There's like little things that you do that are like mindless, you know, you just do them automatically. And that's how drawing gets, you know, to get to a point where there's certain things you'll do almost mindlessly at that point, because you've just done them thousands of times, you know.
And then pretty soon you're just on the cell phone driving 80 past people and like
And eating pizza.
Yeah, honking at
Right.
people who are getting in your way. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good drive metaphor
Or
for
driving with the knee, you know,
Yeah.
drive with the knee instead, so you can
while
eat
you
and
read.
talk on
Yeah.
the phone. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All those good things. It takes skill to get there, you know.
It
Well,
does.
fortunately, you can do all those things with drawing, and the good news is nobody gets hurt, right? So,
That's right.
you know, yeah, you learn these skills, you learn where your shortcuts are, you learn what your shorthands are, you know, all with due time. So something changes here, and this might not be obvious to the audience,
I know what you
but
mean.
a lot of sculpting going on here, a lot of force, right? You're connecting ideas, and suddenly shape is starting to come in. I can see there is an abstraction of simplicity that's starting to occur, right? Yet you're holding on to form. You got the top of that leg to the side of the leg. I really love the block of this that you held on to, but the silhouette's getting simpler and clearer and almost, I want to say less soft or something, less mushy than, let's say, the prior drawings, but still holding on to a big picture at the same time, right?
Yes, sanding off a lot of the features that don't necessarily contribute to the action. And then also dashing in some things like some indications of, rather than, you know, full, like, in other words, I didn't draw an actual box for that knee, but you can feel that knee is boxy from the way that I'm just doing the little tiny scope lines on the top and on the front of the knee. And like you said, a simpler idea where it's going from the back of her butt there all the way around her shoulders to make that one move. And then the arm feels like it's coming out and the legs feels like it's coming out of the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one was interesting because you had pointed out, you're like, oh, you're drawing differently here. There's something here where you're doing a great mix of like black and gray. And you're like, this is different for you. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And I really studied this one because I was trying to figure out what you meant by that. And, you know, and I held on to this one where I kept on coming back and comparing other drawings. And even drawings after this for quite some time weren't comparing to how I did this one. But eventually,
Yeah, that's very good.
We got up to the newest ones, and then you can start seeing that I've really pulled in this black and gray thing into a new world, you know, really understand how to pull it all together.
I think what I was alluding to there is just again, like driving a car, it just takes time and physical effort to understand the tools well and to get like to a certain level of mastery of them. And your decisions as to when you get from gray to dark are clear here. It's like the use of going light and really trying to learn and build and feel forces, and then going darker as things get more realized. I can see that in this, you know, and I can feel that in this, and it's well done. You know, it's like you can see where the help is and where the finality is, and where the help is and where the finality is, and that you kept going that full range from light gray to black and light gray to black in like a better system, a better process, you know. Yeah, it's very good. Any questions for me, Matunje, that we should be fielding? How's everything going out in the chat?
No, it's going great. We're answering the questions.
Great.
Cool. Yeah, just
so like this one, for instance, is not as good as the prior one.
No,
I would say.
Right. I agree.
Right. It's too black, too fast.
Yeah.
It's like inked too quick. It needs more work and time here and to bring over here, where this one is like this other one is like just the right balance of it, and the drawing shows it. You know, it's just more skilled, you know.
There's the right emphasis. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. At the right times, you know. So this is obviously just a quick nod towards we started moving into perspective, right? Which is one of the things we cover in mentorship.
Yeah. Just
and then you started working on that. Yeah. Yes. Anatomy.
Yeah. 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 Just understanding the mechanics of things, how they really go together like a puzzle, and how they work like a machine, you know, studying the body like a machine, you know, like that drawing is really about the knee because I was learning legs. So the rest of them is just an afterthought, but that's me saying, how does this kneecap work? Like, where does that kneecap?
your light to black here is getting better again. It could probably use a little more gray to like help, but you can see that you're using it, right? And then tying it down, tying it down, it's starting to show up there again.
Yeah.
A little more anatomy again.
Just more
Forearms always a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh God.
We got some head stuff that goes on once we get to anatomy, just goes on and on and on also.
Yep.
Head's tricky, right? Because you got to know your perspective and your anatomy. I think our new brushes came out around here, and I remember this time period you started playing around with that. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Really organic feeling, you know, not quite there with the line weights there, but really feeling out, better observing on the drawing, you know, better sympathy with the character.
Mm-hmm. Here you started getting more control over it.
Yeah.
Over the brushes.
Yeah.
Really nice, solid drawing. A lot of good force in it. Yeah.
Then this
and
was
here.
a turner.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Yeah. This is where things really started. Yeah, it's a little dark because it's gray on gray. I was like working a lot at like late at night, so having a white glaring screen was like a bit too much. So I started just going to gray and working on that. And but it really helped me when I was toning stuff in to really start finding shapes and starting to look at the abstraction of the body rather than just, you know, note for note what you're seeing in the left. It was, how can I make this into a series of shapes that are simpler and represent what he's doing and clarify what you're seeing? And I think that was a really big jump, is creating good outline and good clarity, good shape, good you know, better shape than I was doing. And yeah, we're just really paying attention to faces a lot more, and you know, just yeah, like turning something into more how you might find in an animated series or in a comic book. You know, seeing how an abstraction might work. And then this was a turning point for me in the last like 3 months or so, where after I did this copy of this John Buscema Conan drawing, you know, he's kind of a little bit easier Frazetta in some ways, you know, because he himself was such a Frazetta fan, but he wasn't as good as Frazetta. Well, but still damn good, still awesome. Like my favorite, like Marvel guy, basically. He's the one I grew up with, so it's naturally the one I'm used to. But yeah, really studying how he would do his shapes. You can see me in the top right corner there, just doing a leg from imagination to see how his system was really working and how he was thinking of his line weight and his level of black. And, you know, it was in our discussions about inking, and you started bringing up some really cool Marvel drawings and stuff for storyboards and showing like a level of gray and black and white in there. And there's no white in this one. This was just me doing a two-tone. But you can see from the next drawings that it really started informing how I was going to start thinking about drawing. You know, so this one was really where I started bringing in my level of understanding, like just a black and gray, like a two-tone, keeping the force alive, showing that the forms are there, putting energy in the shadows and the pull from her back into her front abdomen, and the weight of that sword and feeling the weight on her leg, but keeping, you know, the shading is what was new to me, and not just adding shadow and light, but telling the story of the effort of the body with shadow and light. You know, there's some other ones that'll even be coming up that don't show the effort the way this one did. So I would come back to this one a lot and start, yeah, there's me still trying to do some Buscema type stuff with what I'm doing, and just the way that he would indicate with his sculpt line and with his line weights, and some more skull work.
Most skulls
Over time. Yeah. Some advanced force stuff where there's lots of forces happening in the body.
Yeah, what I really liked is with you, I felt comfortable going into these areas because you would still always come back with this. And that showed me you understood this cannot be let go of. You know, it still comes down to this. This is still the first step. I still need to figure out how this body functions and find its forces that lead us to these forms and shapes, you know?
That's right. And then this, you know, you started showing me some drawings by Jean Colon, and I know his name is Jean Colon, but I refuse to call him that for his own sake. to me, he's Gene Coulon. And just seeing how he was penciling stuff, you were showing me how he was doing some pencil shading. So I was just practicing what it was like to do pencil shading, is the simplicity of that.
Put a couple of names in here so you guys can look them up if you want in your own time.
I respect him too much to call him by his name.
I know I have to spell it for everyone. There's John Buscema.
Oh, you're typing in the text size.
Yes, I am. I see. Hold on. Let's see. John Buscema, and then Gene Coulon. Yeah. So these two guys are guys that are the two that Gragg was describing. John Buscema was really big 60s, 70s. Like you said, he was hugely influenced by Frazetta. Did a lot of Conan comics and other things as well. And he was the author of the How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, or the illustrator, at least I should say, for How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. And then Gene Coulon happened to be a teacher of mine at SVA, who was very big in comics. His drawings had a lot of force in them. I didn't know that then. Now looking back, I'm like, damn, this guy was really pushing stuff around. He was probably most known for horror comics that he did. He did a lot of Dracula stuff that was very popular in the 70s.
It's really well rendered, really well drawn. A lot of photo reference, but really
yes,
good.
He used reference a lot. Yeah, he was very big on reference.
He's
the one. He used to tell me, tell the class, you should have your own filing cabinet and you should be clipping stuff from magazines. So I had a filing cabinet in my room when I was in college because of me being inspired by him. And every time I went to the doctor's office or something, I would always look through the mag and then ask them like, hey, can I take this magazine or take this one home? And they would let me take them, and I would like cut them up into pieces and basically disseminate them into different folders,
Nice.
So a lot of structure, like you said, a lot of Gene at that time. And then
keeping force alive.
So keeping force alive, got the brushes going for yourself here, right? So I'm going to let you hand it off because we're going to close off today for this last 15 minutes or so with Gragg taking us through the actual PSDs of some of his most current work. I thought it'd be great for you guys to actually see some of the process as to how he's getting to these more finished works that he's done over the last month or so, the most current work. So it's all yours whenever you're ready.
Awesome. So I'm going to share my screen here. And through where to start? Let's start with, so this one was kind of a cool game changer for me. Here, I'll get us out of the way here. This was me in my first attempts of basically trying to recreate some of the earlier stuff I had kind of played with black and gray and starting to mix that in and, just attempting to render basically to take force drawings and, start actually putting, you can see that I'm really putting my line decker influence here where things are very angled and trying to create really solid outlines of the shape and the figure, and yet retain this energy that's going through this pose and the singularity of one idea. So then the next I would go into would, still playing around with this. And, really, I started looking back at some of these Barg drawings where they had a lot of shadow shapes in them because they're kind of classically drawn. And I didn't want to go full classical atelier. I wanted to be somewhere in the middle, like a comic book artist does, where they find very cool shapes for the shadows and try to play with zigzags almost. But the zigzags, of course, are kind of planned to go around anatomy in a way that's still explaining the body, right?
This is where we looked at Jorge Jimenez, right, the comic book artist, and that's right. And that's who I brought in to the render video on Force Friday a few weeks ago, right? So I was inspired, as I was saying. Gragg is part of the reason that video happened because I was having that conversation with him in mentorship at the time, and it was that's so now you're getting to see why that Force Friday came about. Yeah,
he was really going through the ideas of when we go to render, there's a lot to decide. There's so many styles that you can pick from. As you can see, I'll rotate through styles until I really kind of found like, hey, I think this is me, you know, and things started really kind of naturally coming out, you know, kind of like this, you know, where I was playing with light and shadow a lot more and still holding on to force, and, you know, still finding my way and figuring out like, you know, what I liked, and still trying to hold on to the idea of like zigzags within the shadow space, but trying to keep it more forceful, like rather than like less, or rather like less graphic, more forceful. And that's really what got me to here, which is I think the thumbnail that you used. And, you know, this is a good one for me because it really holds on to like, you know, even her skin tone and some of the shine, but, you know, still doing what I want to do with the model. You know, here she is with a pose where she's turning inward with the sword, but I've decided, hey, I know anatomy enough to turn her arm this way and put the sword in perspective. And let's have this instead where she's pulling farther this way because she just swung the sword, right? Whereas here she's pushing in where she's trying to thrust, she's about to thrust the sword in this one. But in this one, I changed the pose so that she has swung all the way and her sword's at this point, and this arm is pulling her this way. And so all the shadows and everything that you see in here are suggesting this twist and suggesting how it's twisting onto this leg and planting this firmly, and she's turning on this toe to get this done. So there's more here than just light and shadow. It's like I start calling it like shadow force, you know, where it's, you know, it's, you're seeing the action within the shadows, you know, and
sounds like an 80s cartoon.
Shadow Force, yeah.
That's a new book right there.
Exactly.
Everybody's after school special favorite, Shadow Force, yeah. So yeah, this one I'm like right in the middle of, so it's kind of fun just to see, you know, like I'm still working this one out and, you know, figuring out how to describe some of the features better, or where I'm going to put the lighting, you know. So and then some of this is where I'm kind of meeting it in between, where I'm still kind of staying kind of like almost flat graphic in some ways, but in other ways I'm starting to put in these form feelings with highlight on her back and some shadow here to keep on suggesting that she's turning against herself. And of course, just trying to make the shadow shapes more interesting, which Mike's been helping me out with on just thinking through how to not stay so parallel with what's going on in the body, but suggesting that these can also be excellent shapes too, just like the limbs are curved. So that's stuff I'm playing around with in this one. And then really starting to play with, you can see the twist in his back. You can see I'm trying to make the lighting so that it's up here on his face, and that we're, you know, that we're selectively lighting like we do in photography, essentially. And I think that merge was really nice for me to start thinking through photography while I'm thinking through how to render at the same time. Like, how would I shoot this if it was a movie? You know, like where I would want the gun flash to be the source of light on his body, and perhaps maybe one other area light in the background that's catching him in different flows. And you can see that, you know, I'm selectively using light and shadow to continue to try to describe the form so that things don't go all the way into darkness, but they're continually being re-suggested that there's a round form here, and that's wrapping around his leg and coming back around, so that we're still feeling the action within the shadows. It's not just shading, it's something that's showing that there's movement through the body. And so,
I mean, you happen to be in like a unique situation because of your background, right? Because let's say photography and lighting. But I want to add, for all of you, when you come to the drawing table, doesn't mean you have to let go of everything else that's ever happened to you in your life. You know, we go back to the beginning of Gragg's conversation. It was about learning how to play guitar or engineering, like all that stuff still comes to the table in some way, shape, or form. And here he's talking about, you know, could be lighting an actor or a model or something, right? And trying to figure out how to bring that in. And we talked about video games, right? Like there's another thing, like there's all these different things that one might not be aware of that you could actually bring to your drawing table with you. So keep that in mind. You know, it doesn't mean that just because you're going into learning how to draw, that you need to drop all the rest of yourself off. In fact, it's better to bring as much of you to the table as possible to help you move forward with prior experience.
Yeah, even your love of movies, they take still frames from your favorite movies,
Mhm.
take still frames from your favorite comic books or whatever it is you're reading, your favorite artists, and look at what they've done with light if you want to study light. Look at photographs. Movies are obviously awesome because they're light on a screen. Basically, it's stuff that's lit and stuff that's not lit. And
Mhm.
finding out those ratios of what you like and how to draw the attention, like I did here, up to his face, and like put this part of his body in shadow so that this isn't really an important part of the drawing, but this is him speculating on life or death as he looks at this skull, is more what this is about. So that's the action scene that we want to light.
Can you go to your prior drawing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not her. The one with the guy that's like kneeling down with his foot in our face. Keep going.
Yeah,
Going.
this guy.
Yeah. Do you have this in layers? Could we see the process on this a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was going to just show like there's actually only one more drawing and then I'll,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So there's this one, which is a little bit more life drawish, but we're still trying to practice using force line through the whole thing. And you can see that this is beautifully top lit, where the top of her is lit and she has heavy under shadows everywhere. So it was really fun to do one where it's lit on top, and as you descend down, it gets darker, right? So, and then, ones where we're looking up at the light and there's sort of almost a power source coming down, which is kind of fun, but keeping the force alive through the leg and making sure that you feel the stretch through this arm, the suggestion. And then, this one where you can still feel she's pulling against her own weight. You can still feel, you can still, what I like about this one, which I wanted to open this one up really quick, is what I like about this one, let's see if I have the earlier drawing of this, is it started here. And I think that's
Right.
what's
That's
important
great.
is that, this, when you're doing force drawing, the way that this is looking like it's looking is by me tracing over these lines over and over again and really feeling out the flow into this body, and this is rendered on top of this. This to me is the most structurally important thing to start with. And ending up here this is just the icing on the cake, but this is really actually the cake. And it's hard to know that at first. When you get into rendering, it starts getting even more important because you'll do a render and it's not very good. And you say, well, I don't understand. I put all the ingredients I did to the other ones. Why doesn't this look good? And what's missing is this inside of it, is really understanding that this is what people were really looking at, secretly communicated through your whole pose. The artist knows, they wink. Other people might just say, oh, yeah, it looks good. But really what they're saying is, I like how I can see the flow of this work through this body, right? Like these are the hidden forces in the body. So, so if we go back to the one you were talking about.
Yeah, anyone that you have some good process on, I think would be cool to share.
Sure. Yeah, I even like the one that we're just looking at, to bring that back up, let's see if I can. What I like about this one is like how easy it is to kind of describe how, let's see, how it starts off like this, but then this is built on top of this. Let me get some stuff out of the way here. So this is, I'll zoom in a little bit. This is built on top of this. So this line work, you don't want to start with line work like this. You can, if you're good enough where you can, like some of my drawings, I know this in my head, so I can start here on them. But a lot of them, if I don't know them, I have to be honest. And I have to say, I really don't understand how this is working. And I want to start here so that I have a good foundation for it. And then on top of that, you start saying, okay, well, let me refine these. Let me get the face. Let me practice the head off to the side. Let me work on the things I don't understand, until finally you might get it to a form where you're like, okay, I like what I've got here. I think it's time to start rendering in on this form. And so each one of these iterations as I go up is me saying, okay, let me get rid of the head now. Let me get this by itself. Let me start figuring out what's missing or what I would like to add, like this little flavor of her lats back here, and her serratus muscles are coming around the side there, and figuring out what I like there. But then you start this was a first style of render that I did, where it was, mostly like black and light and gray on top of it, and figuring out like, okay, yeah, I like how this is, and I could have left it here, and which I did before actually. And I said, well, you know what? I think there's even more that can go on in this. So I put an action background in there so you can see that it's bending back with her in this background. So it accentuates what you see in this, which is her bending back in this pose. And then started doing one level of shadow on top of it with a textured brush, and then going back over it and finding all like the little bits that I wanted to describe in her body with highlight on top of that. So that's how that one is built. And you can see I left the face. This is like kind of like a moonlight lit is what we'd call it in the movie industry, where it's like mostly dark with like hot highlights basically on the body, and sort of a moonlight look. And this might be where you open up a can of a light just on her face from the side so that you can get this sort of side lighting on her. So it's like thinking through the movie industry too, and thinking about shots that you've seen and how to bring that level of like photography into the rendering. Is there any other ones you want me to go through? Just to
No, we are out of time. So that was
Okay.
good.
Perfect.
All right.
There you go.
So if you don't mind stopping share, and then
Not at all.
let's close out today. So thank you, Gragg, for coming today and sharing your experience with the audience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was great having you. Hope that all of you out there in the audience have learned something from today, and hearing Gragg's story. Thank you, Swami and Mritunjay, for driving the chat today and answering all those questions. Like I said, I'm in New York. Just to close off again, there's 2-day workshop. It's happening next weekend. Go to drawingforce.com and check out the workshop page, and go check out the clothing book, right? It's out. It's available. It came out this past Wednesday. We will talk more about clothing in future Force Fridays. Check out my Instagram. I'm posting a lot of my experiences here in New York. So if you want to see what's going on here, I'm going to be going to a really awesome exhibit tonight on one of my favorite artists. So if you're interested in seeing that, that will probably be going up later tonight or tomorrow morning. And other than that, we will see you guys next Friday. Take care. Thanks again, everyone. We'll see you in a week. Bye-bye.
Bye.